Hello my friends, I hope you're well. I hope you had a wonderful day, evening or night. Today we're in Wareham filming a kind of behind the scenes video, a tour promotional piece for Birds of Poole Harbor. This is going to be the first of two videos that we're likely going to do, looking at Osprey specifically, but we also got some deer and we also got a missile thrush and a peregrine falcon flew past rather quickly, so that was lovely. We got to hear a lot about the site, we got to hear a lot about the community involvement, and of course we got to hear from a representative from the charity as well, and I had a look a little around the garden as well. So enjoy this. I hope you're going to take value. I hope you're going to enjoy it. It's a new kind of bit of content that I haven't really tried before, but I saw an opportunity, so I thought I would try it.
Welcome to Charities. Brief background about Charities. It was bought in 2019 by Mark Constantine. If people have heard of him, he started Lush with his wife Mo. He's also our co-founder. Co-founded the charity back in 2013. And very kindly said we could put one of the Osprey nests here when we started the project, well 2 years into the project. And we're very, very lucky that they decided to nest here. Trust me when I say we've got about 15 other platforms around the harbour. They don't all have cafes and toilets and walled gardens, so we're very lucky that this is the site they chose. Ospreys are the second most common raptor in the world. They're on every continent apart from Antarctica, but here they were declared extinct in 1916. A number of reasons for that, the main one being that we hunted them to the point that they were declared extinct. They eat fish, that's all they eat. Obviously we're an island nation, we eat a lot of fish too, and we saw them as a threat to our fish stocks, so we killed them. Somewhat ironically, lovely wing stretch, somewhat ironically, they eat a lot of mullets. That's one of their primary food sources, and we don't. It's tough, it's grisly, it's bitter, it's not very nice, but we still saw fit to persecute them. The Victorians then came along with all their weird and wonderful hobbies and started egg collecting. By this point, ospreys were already in decline, so osprey eggs were quite rare and valuable. So you can imagine a lot of them went after those, and also the feathers were used for women's fashions. And then we had, when they were starting to make a sort of natural recovery, we had, post-World War II, the rise of industrial agriculture and farming and the use of pesticides like DDT. DDT thins eggshells, so they would break during hatching or during incubation. When they would sit on them, they have to turn the eggs to make sure they're incubated evenly, they would crack. And not just ospreys were affected, lots and lots of birds. Luckily, it was banned about 50 years ago, but still it came at a dreadful time for our ospreys. They made a natural recovery in Scotland, somewhat. A breeding pair appeared, and then in 1950 a project was started up there by the RSPB in Lochgarten to sort of reintroduce them, and they did really, really well. And then in the 1990s we had Roy Dennis. Anyone heard of Roy Dennis? Yeah, absolute osprey legend. He started a translocation project up in Rutland in the Midlands, which is now doing incredibly well. They've got about 25 breeding pairs there, so doing really, really well. They spread into Wales, but they hadn't come further south. Now we knew that they came through Poole Harbor on migration, but they hadn't settled here, and that's because of something called natal philopatry, which is big words, basically just means a love of the home. So the males, when they migrate to West Africa and come back, they will nearly always return to where they're from. So 022, our lovely male, who hopefully has gone out fishing, he was born just, if you look out to the garden behind you, where the canopy of trees ends, the River Piddle is behind that. He was fledged from there. He's now nesting less than a mile away up at the platform, so he's come back to where he's from. The females are slightly different, I'll talk about that up there when we get up to the platform. So, very slow dispersal rate. We worked out it would take about 100 years for them to naturally come down south. We were the reason they went extinct in the first place, so we thought we should be the ones to bring them back. We started the translocation project in 2017. Like I said, we've got a few nests up and about around the harbour. Translocation basically just means bringing chicks down from another healthy population. So we brought chicks down from places like Scotland, about 8 to 14 chicks a time, did it for 4 years, had to stop because of bird flu, but happily the project's going really well. And they were kept in something called a hacking pen, which sounds horrendous, I promise it's not. It's like Hotel Osprey. About half the size of this barn. They had a nest in each hacking pen, 2 to 3 chicks per nest, and they were fed 3 times a day through a trapdoor with trout from the local trout farm, very luxurious, and they were monitored by video as well. We didn't want them to have any sort of positive association with people because of that historic persecution. We don't want them flying over places like Malta, some places in Africa where it's legal to shoot them, and thinking, oh, human food. We didn't want that to happen again, so we really kept our distance. And when they started doing, which 5R3 is very kindly demonstrating for me right now, helicopter flight, which is when they stick their wings out and start testing them, taking off a little bit. I was going to say that's not helicoptering, that's helicoptering. Luckily he missed the camera this time. She missed the camera this time, sorry, that's our female. So when they started doing this, I love it when they can fly, they would be, the doors to these pens would be opened and they'd be sort of left to their own devices. When they fledge, their parents go before them, so they're not taught how to hunt, they're not taught how to fly, they're left to their own devices. So they spend about a month imprinting on the harbour, learning how to hunt, and then off they go to West Africa. Places like the Gambia, Senegal, Guinea-Bissau. We are seeing some of them now settling in Spain and Portugal, sort of the Iberian Peninsula, mainly due to global warming. They don't have to go through the Sahara, so why would you? So it's great for our ospreys, not great for the planet. And then after 2 years, they come back. That first migration is always 2 years because they don't reach maturity, sexual maturity, until they're about 2 or 3. So there's no point doing that journey 4 times for no reason. So they come back, like I say, the males will settle where they're from. Females slightly different, we'll talk about that later. I think for now I'm going to leave it there. Like I said, we're expecting a fish delivery. We've had loads of missel thrushes up there, which are quite a rare to see species now as well. And we've also had woodlark. Only about 30,000, I want to say, breeding pairs of woodlark in the UK, and we've got some in the field below us, so very rare and lovely to see. Slightly peculiar stop, I do apologise. This is the Berlin Wall. Welcome everyone to Berlin. It's not a nickname, it really is the Berlin Wall, not a paintball course as some people think. It was found in a hauler's yard in the southwest. Obviously it came from Berlin, we've got no idea how it got there. And Mark, who I mentioned, who owns Charities and co-founded Birds of Poole Harbor, he bought it and brought it here. He didn't like the idea of this literally massive piece of history never being seen. So he brought it here. It was here before we knew that this would be the path to the Ospreys. So this is why you have this slightly strange stop. A few weeks ago we did have some Spitfires fly past as well. So you might see some of those as well. I think a gold crest. There's one at the top of this pine tree. This is what we think might be an old goshawk nest. You see it's pretty big. Wait till you see the size of the osprey nest though. Yeah, very big. This is sort of prime goshawk territory. They love coniferous forests like this. Ambush predators as well, so spend a lot of time sitting and waiting in trees. They don't fly around like a lot of other raptors, they'll just wait and attack. We haven't seen any here this year. They are making a very good natural recovery. Obviously, they are a threat to our ospreys because of being ambush predators. Things like the weight of the prey doesn't matter so much to them because they're very hefty and bulky. They will sort of just ram themselves into an animal to sort of stun it and then attack it. We did have, back in, I want to say 2022, one of our chicks was killed by a goshawk. It came up the side of the osprey nest quite unexpectedly. CJ was sat there with the 2 chicks, a male and a female. You can see, we've got a video of it if anyone wants to see it later. 022, the male flies in, tries to intercept. They all get a bit tangled up and all 3 of them just tumble out of the nest. And sadly one of the chicks was caught up in that. And wasn't predated on by the goshawk because the goshawk was only 5 weeks old. An adult goshawk would think better of attacking a nest with 2 adult ospreys on. So what happened was, they were very startled at first, obviously, of that happening. Once they'd recovered from that, they still had a chick in the nest that needed defending. So they went into defence mode and saw the goshawk off, but sadly the male chick did die. But we haven't seen any this year. Good for our ospreys, not great for goshawks. Goshawks are doing very well in Wareham Forest. If you go out towards sort of Bear Regis, between Wareham and Bear Regis, you can see them there. And in the New Forest, doing incredibly well. Best time to see them sort of early mornings in March when they're displaying before the breeding period. Yeah, what we think is a goshawk nest. Oh, sorry. I've just paused us here. As you can see, sort of behind this screen, the trees really thin out behind us. CJ7 is a very nervous bird. She's got very good eyesight and she can see us. So we've just got this here to protect her from us as we all go up onto the platform. Ospreys are a Schedule 1 protected species, so it is illegal to disturb them. And the same with the woodlarks as well. So please don't go into the field when you come back down from the platform as you need a licence.
retiring for the second time, having had a career in the army and then with the courts, I had it in mind that I wanted to volunteer for something to do with conservation and ornithology. So I saw an advert for a volunteer guided walk leader at RSPB Arm, and when I went down there, they asked me to be checked out by one of their new employees, a guy called Paul Morton, who was the newly employed information officer. He then took me around the reserve and made up his mind that I was reasonably competent, and so that's how I got accepted for the job. Did about 10, 11 years of guided walk leading there, and as a result of that gradually got into other activities around the harbour, one of which was working for the British Trust for Ornithology, coordinating the wetland bird survey with Paul Morton. And of course that led me to meeting more and more birders. And then eventually, of course, Paul founded Birds of Poole Harbor, and I automatically got involved with working for them as well, hence my presence here today on the Osprey platform.
Do you think that people who, I mean obviously Ospreys as a whole, they do pull quite a lot of people to this site and around it? I mean, is there in your experience with the people you've spoken to, is there a kind of fixation and kind of an unknown about them specifically?
I think there is a fascination with Ospreys in particular because they're very charismatic birds. There's things about them that appeal to people. First of all, they're a very handsome looking creature, chestnut brown and white. Secondly, they make fantastic parents, as you've seen the CJ7022. Thirdly, they have this instinct to go down to West Africa on migration and then back again. But I think more than anything else, the fact that they've been absent from the United Kingdom for 150 years or so, pretty much, until they came back almost by accident to Lochgarten in Scotland in 1954. And since then it's been that gradual repopulating of, first of all, Scotland, where there are now 300 pairs, and then using the Scottish stock, the movement to repopulate the rest of the United Kingdom, and that has caught the imagination. And as you can see from the interest that we're generating on this platform. But also, of course, equally with Birds of Poole Harbor's boat tours in the harbour, you've got this team of young ecologists, very good birders, very enthusiastic, give a really good commentary. And year by year, they're attracting more and more interest. And obviously, particularly at this time of year, they'll come down here for the birding generally, but the focus is always on the Ospreys. So now you've got a situation that's developed where you can be on a Birds of Poole Harbor boat in the Wareham Channel, and on the same afternoon you can be seeing white-tailed eagle, ospreys fishing, spoonbills, marsh harriers, you name it. And several of these species you wouldn't have seen 10 or 15 years ago. And I think that's putting not only the organisation's name, but the harbour's name on the map as a really important place for conservation, translocation, a really happening place in a country that's generally very nature depleted. But here we are in this area, we seem to be having a lot of success. And it's all down to the cooperation of these local organisations, not least, of course, of which you have Birds of Poole Harbor.
Do you think, for people who maybe haven't been or maybe looking to go, I mean, what would you say to those people who are maybe on the fence about booking on a tour, maybe this one or the boat one later on this summer?
Well, I think it's every time is a winner. Very rarely do you go on a boat tour and not see some fairly interesting action at any time of year, actually. And you can see that Birds of Poole Harbor run their winter safaris, their spring safaris, summer safaris. In August and September, they're specifically Osprey boats. But of course, all the time you'll be seeing whatever is about from a bird point of view in that particular season. So and I think people are much more conservation minded than they were 10 or 20 years ago. And we certainly see this because the boats are really, fully booked, as is the platform. So it's really capturing the imagination.
Do you think that's, I guess, a really important element, or really important part of what the work as you guys are doing, but also widely kind of the challenges that we as a community, as a culture, as a as a world potentially is facing? Do you think like you're really making a meaningful change to notch that like awareness, or even from just like getting people to be more advocate based? Do you think this has played a really strong part?
Well, I hope so. I think people generally are more conservation minded. This has been aided, as you know, by these wonderful programs we have, like Springwatch, for example. That's really putting it in the popular imagination. I don't want to be overconfident, because we've got 70 million people living on a very crowded island, and we are, as you know, very nature depleted. But I think the local scene here, as we've described, shows what can be done with a will and with the cooperation of the public. So the more we can put the message out there, the more conservation minded we can make people, the more likely these various projects to repopulate the area with species that once were here, the easier that becomes.
Is there anything else specifically you want to mention?
No, just to say that I think we're very lucky to live in and around Isle of Purbeck, Poole Harbor, because it naturally attracts very like-minded people when it comes to nature and conservation.
Thank you so much.
I'm not sure. I mean, it's really nice to see, this is a translocation project. There's been a few Osprey translocation projects over the last few decades. What's amazing now is that we're seeing other Ospreys coming back that were part of those. So obviously CJ7 was from the project in Rutland, 022 is one of ours, but then we've got a second breeding pair now. So these guys were actually the first breeding pair in the south for almost 200 years. And now we've got two pairs, and they are also from Rutland and Poole, so it shows the sort of importance of these projects. We've also got things like the eagle that were released the white-tailed eagle released on the Isle of Wight, and the marsh harrier. Now if you go out on our boats, or even if you just visit the harbour, you can see all three. 20 years ago you wouldn't have seen that at all. So it's amazing how, we're such a small charity, and it's not just us. We've got, the projects going on the Isle of Wight, we've got ARN, RSPB ARN and things like that. How just over a few decades, for us, the project's only been going for 8 years. Small charities can make such a huge difference to our local wildlife, and part of that has been, engaging local people, and our Ospreys are sort of local celebrities, and people becoming more aware of them makes them want to help protect them more. So it all sort of feeds into each other and shows that success can come quite quickly in quite a short amount of time. So it's really lovely, really nice, yeah.
People don't know, so it's like that, because it's that balance, I think, isn't it, between the educational side and then the personality, like the people side.
Yes,
Do you think that what you've kind of done here is married them both together?
I think so. I think what Birds of Poole Harbor does really well is it makes it very accessible. I think COVID really helped. One of the strange things to come out of COVID was that people were trapped in their homes and they wanted to seek a nature connection. So that's really helped, because before that, I think people felt that these sort of pursuits, bird watching it could be quite exclusive. Whereas I think Birds of Poole Harbor's managed to marry that, by us being very enthusiastic about it, showing other people can be very enthusiastic about it. People who felt they were but didn't feel there was a safe space for them to do that, feel welcomed and encouraged, and then that all feeds into caring about these guys. Enthusiasm sort of breeds enthusiasm, which is lovely. So I think that's what Birds of Poole Harbor does really well. Yeah.
How have you found? Because you mentioned in we were fortunate enough to meet a family, but also I think a lot of people, when they want to install the right values, they want to install nature into their kids. I mean, was that always a core plan, or has that sort of accidentally happened?
Well, before sort of Birds of Poole Harbor even became a charity, Mark Constantine, who co-founded it, used to do school boat trips, which he funds himself, so the school doesn't have to pay anything. The minibus goes to the school, picks the kids up, brings them out, takes them on the boat, they do a tour and takes them back to school again. So it's always been quite an important part of what Birds of Poole Harbor does. We also have our Young Birders Club. We do ringing demos for young people, so it's always been, I think anyone who works in environmentalism knows that we sort of have to pass the baton on to the next generation. And we're very lucky, like I said, we get lots of kids coming up here who are very excited. And I think it's very important that we engage them. I think there's a study recently that said, children in Britain start to lose their interest in nature by the age of 10. And that's a lot of the ages that people up here are coming at. So it's really, really important that we keep them engaged so that projects like this can sort of continue, really. Yeah.
How do you, obviously you get income from the tour and the boat tour here, of course. Is that the main kind of funding element?
Yeah, we are primarily now funded by our events. So things like this, you guys coming out to see the Ospreys and our boat tours. We also have bird bird ID song walks, we do nightjar walks, all that kind of thing. We are primarily funded by that. Of course, you get funds from grants and other charities and such like that, but that's very small. Most of it now is our income kind of feeds back into what we do, our outreach, our research, our events. It all sort of funds itself now, which is really a lovely place to be in, yeah, especially for so small a charity.
Absolutely. I mean, is there people who are maybe on the fence who are seeing what you're doing? Maybe like, should I come, should I not come? What would you say to those people specifically?
Have you ever really regretted doing something like this? I always say it's a bit like when you go for a swim in the sea, you don't really regret it, you always feel amazing afterwards. I think if people are on the fence, they should just come and see what incredible wildlife we have on our doorstep. Bird watching in particular is a very accessible way of engaging with nature in Britain. We don't have these enormous mammals like you would see on safari, but what we do have is an extraordinary abundance and diversity of birds. Some which are very common, which have amazing adaptations, some which you see all the time in your garden, some like the ospreys, which are quite rare, but we're very, very lucky that we have them all here. And a lot of people, not just in Britain but in the world, don't get to have that sort of experience of incredible doorstep wildlife, I suppose. It's only for a couple of hours, just come along, see, you might be surprised, you might become a birder afterwards, yeah.
For those who maybe are interested in getting into the hobby,
yeah,
how would you recommend? I mean, is it like coming on a tour like today, or like, is it because I started by just walking in my local woodland?
Yeah, so start in your local patch. If you don't have a garden, in your garden, amazing. If you don't have a garden, just go for a walk around the block. Always stay safe, obviously, but one thing I try and do is, if I want to spend the day birding, is I use my ears. I sort of listen to where things are going. I look up, it's quite important, and just sort of follow the animals. Obviously, stay safe, let people know where you're going, careful of roads, all of that. But I think, like I mentioned, it was one of those things that became quite popular in COVID. We all had to stick to a very small area and there wasn't much to do. So a lot of people became bird watchers because it was something that was easy. Don't be intimidated by all the gear and the binoculars and the cameras and the scopes. Just get out there and have a wander around. It's really, really simple. And then from there, you start meeting other people. You might, if you're going on your local patch, you might end up seeing your neighbour the same time every day and say, I've just been off to see these, and you kind of get other people involved. I think it's a very community-based hobby. A lot of people think it's quite solitary, but really it's not. Yeah.
Do you think the science is basically conclusive now. It says that being around in nature and etc. is a net positive for your mental health, net positive for your physical health. But have you personally found it is that?
Oh, absolutely. I really struggled during COVID, being indoors all the time. It took me a long time to sort of come out of my shell after that. But even just this job, I was working in an office block 9 to 5 every day. Being outside all day, I've found that I'm a lot happier, I feel fitter, my mind feels less cloudy, I get a lot more engagement with people, which is really nice. I'm seeing multiple groups of people multiple times a day. And even if you're having a bit of a rough day, you come out here, it's sunny or windy, you get to see these amazing birds that a lot of people don't get to. You get to chat to people who have a common interest with you. I think I've felt the benefits like no end. It's been amazing for me. Yeah.
You talked about these guys coming from Rutland. Is there any other parts of their story that you specifically want to mention? They're going to migrate, and then do you expect them to come back here? Yeah,
so what they do, ospreys people think they pair bond, but they don't, they nest bond. So they have nest bonded to this particular platform here. A good illustration of the fact they don't pair bond was at the start of this year. 022, our male, came back quite early and CJ7 hadn't arrived yet. I mentioned to you earlier about the native phylopatry. Males return to where they're from, the females sort of fly around looking for nests and other ospreys. Well, we had a female from Rutland called 1H1. She flew over on migration, saw a nest with a male on it and thought, well, hey. So she sort of settled there and tried to nest bond with this nest with him on it. They had a little bit of a frisson, but didn't go anywhere, and CJ7 returned back. He doesn't know that CJ7 is going to come back. They don't migrate together. As far as we know, they might go to completely different countries. So if she hadn't come back, he might well have bred with this other Rutland female. Unfortunately for the Rutland female, CJ7 did come back and they pair bonded again. And then Poor 1H1, as she's called, she flew around to a lot of the different sort of Osprey hotspots in the UK, up to Scotland even, came back down, went to Rutland where she's from, and then came back down here, and she is now she's part of the second breeding pair in the southwest for 200 years, and she's got her own 2 chicks, so she's had her own sort of happy ending as well. But yeah, it's one of those things that people don't realise, they don't pair bond, they nest bond, so things can disrupt that, yeah. Yeah, I should say as well, there's 4 different subspecies of osprey. And I don't know if you heard that they're incredibly common elsewhere. It's just people don't realise, you find them on every continent apart from Antarctica, because here we stupidly hunted them to extinction. It's lovely seeing people sort of engaged with them, and they are local celebrities. People watch the webcam and they come down for the first time, or people like my parents who've watched it since the very beginning, which was during COVID. It's a lovely sort of bringing together of people in quite an unexpected way. I'm sure people didn't find they'd be connected through this Osprey webcam. We have people watching it from the US who talk to people who are here in Dorset, and they say, "Good morning, how are you? I'm off to do my shopping, how are the Ospreys?" It's really lovely, it's such a lovely project. I'm very proud to be part of it. Yeah.
Do you think, just a final question, do you think that community element that you were just alluding to is like one of the key reasons why it would be successful?
In terms of their
conservation
conservation?
As a whole and
I think so. I think you see it a lot with other species. It's one of the reasons why we're now calling the orca and not the killer whale. Public perception makes a big difference in conservation of animals. We all want to look after dolphins, but some people don't want to look after sharks. And it's one of those things. If we can engage people and get them sort of hyped up and happy and positive about the ospreys, it does make a huge difference. There's not a lot of money in conservation because the reward isn't monetary. But I think we have a growing industry of sort of ecotourism, especially down here. So if you can get people engaged and happy about local nature, local businesses then think, hang on. So I think they are a huge part of the success of the project. Yeah.
And thank you ever so much for coming back and joining me once again. If you did enjoy this video and like to see more like it, make sure to be subscribed, and I'll see you very, very soon.